Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Cambridge University Press. I think it's a very useful book because it's looking at a division between public and private law when we look at technical standardization of law. And it's actually the Cambridge Handbook of Technical Standardization law, further into sections of public and private law, and it's been edited by Jorge Contreras. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. My apologies if I haven't. Now, Elizabeth was the lead writer on this particular book. We'll have a look at it in a minute. The headline we've given for our book review is Groundbreaking Research into the Legal Aspects of Technical Standards and Standardization. Obviously a very important area. It's the companion volume to Patents, Competition and Antitrust. And the reason I wanted to look at this book is because obviously we are just about on the cusp of a big change. I'm recording this at the end of January 2020. We're just looking at Brexit at the moment and the future implications for exactly what we're going to do within Europe in the future and of course globally. Let's look at the book first of all. There we go, you can see it's a hardback book, green cover there. Obviously I'm recording this in the evening, so I'm using artificial light, so it's not quite the same colour. You can see the back of the book there as well. It's not a heavy book at all. There's a little inside cover which is setting out who the author is. Professor of Law, Professor Contreras, University of Utah. Now there at the front of the book is some more information about the actual book itself. There's an index right at the back which you can probably see there. CUP are extremely proficient in producing really excellent works. The index in their case is by page numbering, and as I say, the book runs to about 300 or just over 300 pages. This is actually the blurb about the book. We've got a little bit of it for the review. Then you've got the front page there. Then of course you've got some more information about Cambridge University Press. Then you've got the content section. You can see there's an introduction, there's a list of contributors of course. Then you've got various parts. Part 1, Standardization in the State. Part 2, Standardization, Health, Safety and Liability. Part 3, Copyright and Standards. Then Part 4, Standards and Software. And Part 5, Trademarks, Certification and Standards. So we're looking very much at IP work here. There's some table of contents, more there. Then you've got the list of contributors, large number. I can't, alas, go through all of them, but you can see the names there, a lot of brief biographical details. Then we get on to a preface which sets out the work. Technical standardization policy has been animated for more than a century by pursuit of efficiencies from interpretability, interesting word that one, and also in recent decades by active facilitation of economic and innovation gains achievable through competitive markets benefiting from network effects. Now you can see there again, as one sentence, there's an awful lot in it. So it's not the easiest book to read in some ways. The editor, as he calls himself, has some acknowledgements. Then we get into the book itself. He starts off with an introduction, of course. Then you get into the main work itself. You can see that there are the chapters. You can see there's footnoting, various other things. Again, going further in, you can see quite substantial footnoting in some cases, and running all the way through. Of course, the contributors are the people who've put the work into the various chapter headings, and of course the parts of the book. So what do we say about it? Well, we say this. As Cambridge has long been recognised as pre-eminent in scientific research, it's not too surprising then that this legal text on technical standardization law has been published by the Cambridge University Press, CUP. There's a companion volume, as I indicated, called Patents, Competition and Antitrust, and it's referred to as groundbreaking, as undoubtedly undoubtedly is this work as well. Now, containing an impressive range of commentary from leading experts in the field, what the work does, it's a handbook, and it's actually presenting a comprehensive examination of legal issues affecting standardization. It may not have occurred to some of us, but as the editor, Professor Contreras, points out, standardization as such is a necessary and well-nigh ubiquitous driver of change in the modern networked economy. Now, he says that right at the beginning. I did find the use of the English to be quite heavy. So the word of warning there is that this is a book where you have to look at, he's using each word to mean something, and sometimes the sentences are quite long. Does not mean in any way that that's a criticism of it, but it's actually an objective assessment of the way in which he writes. So do be aware that this is a book where you have to think a little bit about some of the words that he's using and what they actually mean. Because some of the words that he's using, to think a little bit about what he was actually talking about. But there again, that's the case with much of some of the modern literature we have today. Now, standardization more or less inspires inventive minds to innovate on top of established technologies. For instance, railroad tracks and telephone lines are only two commonplace examples which illustrate the necessity for standardization in past decades. And of course, in the near future, innovations such as automated vehicles, artificial intelligence, as AI of course, and the Internet of Things will develop in directions that are now difficult to predict through the use of standardized technologies. And I say that because obviously there are some very substantial changes on the way in the future. And I think particularly interesting is the article by the contributor Emily S. Bremer, and she actually compares government use of standards in the United States of America and the European Union. Of course, this is quite an important area at the moment for the United Kingdom with the changes that are going to take place in 2020. Worldwide, she explains, the vast majority of standards are developed by private or non-governmental standards development organisations. These standards, she adds, are used by many different people and entities across all sectors of industry, ensuring smooth functioning of the economy, facilitating technological advancement and protecting public health and safety. So you can see there's a very substantial commentary here from Emily. And in its breadth and coverage of this subject as a whole, this handbook, this volume, has been described as unique. We'd be a bit wary about calling something unique, because it means it's on its own. It's a one-off. But this is actually a book where there's an erudite team of 15 international contributors who've examined the key legal issues which affect standardization. And we're very lucky to have them all sort of coming together. CUP do this very well indeed, and they make our lives a lot easier, especially for both researchers and practitioners, guys actually doing the operational work. So it does help. And of course, the important thing is it does raise awareness that on both sides of the Atlantic and elsewhere, current research and development activities, mostly of course in private sector initiatives, are overseen, regulated and constrained by a range of legal frameworks, including international trade law, big area at the moment, administrative law, tort, trademark law, certification and copyright law, from which issues of intellectual property, IP, obviously emerge. Now, I say that because obviously there is regulation, and one always thinks of regulation specifically in the public sector, but of course this is the private sector, and it's important to remember that because of the initiatives we've got at the moment. Judging them by its impressive bibliography of almost 30 pages, this book with its illuminating commentary is obviously the result of careful and extensive research, all sort of brought together by the editor and the contributors. Therefore, I think it offers a valuable investigative tool for practitioners, judges and academics alike who are keen to enhance their understanding of what is a particularly fascinating and fast developing area of law. And I do think this is going to be something that we will have to watch in the next few years as the 2020s develop, to see what happens, because we are going to be in for a massive amount of change this decade, both in terms of technology and of course in things like healthcare as well. The date of the publication is cited at the end of 2019, and I'm recording this at the beginning of 2020. There's the book again. You can see the contributors are mentioned on the back, the names there. As I say, just opening the book up, as I say, we looked at the index earlier on there. Then you've got a very substantial bibliography. They're called references, but it's still a bibliography. And in fact, there's a lot of it, which is quite helpful, because clearly, depending on the research you're doing, these references, and they're actually split. There's case law as well, so the references include everything. And if we go to the front of the book, you don't have the same sort of structure that you quite often get, because you go straight into the introduction, and then from that you go into the part one, which is this part here, on international trade law itself. You notice there are, in fact, there's a mini index which assists, and you can then see, of course, the actual footnotes as well, running all the way through. Altogether, I was very impressed with this book. I have to say, I have not seen its sister publication, but when I looked at this, I thought this was definitely a book which would be of great interest to quite a large number of people. Obviously, I've come from the bar, and the module I took for my bar finals was international trade. So I found this of particular interest, even though it was 30 years ago that I actually did the exams. I'm getting a bit old, never mind. Anyway, thank you to everybody concerned, and a very big thank you again to Cambridge University Press for producing what is a first-class work. Thank you. Bye-bye.